Any chance that Trey Lance comes back? And is Trent Williams tipping off plays? We'll talk about that and much more next. Now, normally this is where I have a last second sports intro, but this is different. You see the hammer and nails tag. Normally we're just live on Jack's channel, but tonight we are live on both channels because Sunil was unable to make it to the show that we would normally run afterwards. So that being said, we are live on Jack's YouTube channel. We are live on Last Second Sports. Jack, my co-host, how you doing tonight, my man?
I'm good. I'm excited. I get to be on Last Second Sports finally. Finally, this is the first time I think since the 2021 draft where you invited me over here.
You've been stealing all of the hammer and nail shows over on your channel, and I said it's my turn to have some love too.
That's right. It works out good for both of us. This is fun.
Absolutely. We got a lot to talk about tonight, Jack. There is. I've set the Twitter world on fire, and we'll get to all that in just a moment. But there are some other 49ers things to talk about. And the first one is CMC and Deebo. We finally got to see them play together with both of them having full preparation time going into a week. And, you know, it may have looked like you thought. Maybe it didn't look like you thought it would look. But overall, the result was the 49ers won. There are things to build on. So, Jack, I'll ask you, what are your thoughts on the CMC and Deebo combo and what it looked like first week together?
You know, and watching it back on the All 22, it wasn't as bad as I remember it from Sunday night. It was a little bit better, and I think that in some ways, Jimmy Garoppolo held it back a little bit because there was a couple times on RPOs where he made the wrong read. Instead of giving it, he threw, and instead of throwing, he gave, and those kind of things. I think when it comes to McCaffrey and Deebo, our expectations are just so high, right? Because we've seen what both these guys can do by themselves. And so the thought is, okay, they're going to both be out there and they're going to blow it out. And I don't know. I watched it. I thought McCaffrey played pretty well. I really don't like the way they're using Deebo Samuel. I think he's being used in the backfield way more than he needs to be. Let him go back and play wide receiver. The best thing the 49ers did, one of their best plays on Sunday night was allowing Christian McCaffrey just to be a running back and have it was a pass play, very similar to what they did against the Rams, where they worked George Kittle to the left side and they put a defender in conflict. It was either going to be McCaffrey or Kittle. The ball goes to McCaffrey for a gain of 21. And I don't know why they got away from what they did so well against the Rams. They just never really tried that much this week.
Yeah, I think we talked about this a couple weeks ago. I know that I talked about it in a segment on one of my shows, but do you think that Christian McCaffrey coming over devalues Deebo Samuel at all?
From a running game standpoint, it does, because he does all the same things that Deebo Samuel can do. I think I look at the game yet on Sunday, and in some ways, I think Shanahan's getting a little too cute with both of them because they do affect the way that the defense moves so much. But I don't like seeing Deebo. I don't think there's a need for Deebo Samuel to be in the backfield as often these days. He one of the reasons they didn't score in the red zone on one of their runs was because one of their trips down there was because Deebo Samuel's not a running back and they're trying to run him up the middle and he doesn't follow his blocker. And so he gets tackled after a gain of 7 instead of being a touchdown. I just want to see Deebo Samuel as a wide receiver again.
Yeah, I do
throw
too.
Him back there every once in a while, but not as much as you're doing.
Yeah, absolutely. And I don't mind him being back there. I also, you know what I would like to see again? I'd like to see the jet sweeps from him. I would like to bring that back a little bit. I think that's totally fine. It's a different way to stretch out the defense. I don't mind them being in the backfield together, especially when one goes in motion, because you can see that the defense is in conflict. Like, okay, well, do I follow CMC or Deebo, or do I keep my eyes on the backfield? So I don't mind that as much, but I do agree. I mean, at the end of the day, Deebo Samuel is a receiver, and he's being paid a lot of money. to be a weapon. I get that. But now that CMC's here, I think that it takes away from Deebo having to do some of those things. So let's get back to being the receiver that was able to get 1,400 plus yards receiving last year and do it really in minimal games, because there was a lot of those games where they just turned him into a running back. Deebo Samuel is a special player. Right now, it's a little out of rhythm. I think that it'll probably get back on track at some point. It's got to happen soon, though. I mean, they are late, starting to get late into the second half of the season, but I think that they'll figure things out. I do think red zone, though, is a good call out by you. Certainly, there are some issues there, and you would think with having 5 all-pro caliber players on offense that you would be able to punch the ball in. And by the way, Jimmy Garoppolo is not playing bad football, so it's not on Jimmy Garoppolo either. For whatever reason, though, this team does struggle in the red zone. You touched on it a little bit. You want to elaborate?
Yeah, you look at this, and Kyle Shanahan talked about it yesterday too, right? Because he was asked about it because the offense isn't scoring points, and he was asked about, in particular, because he did mention they got down there 5 times and they only scored 2 touchdowns, and the difference between scoring 30 and 22 was their inability to punch it in the red zone. And going through it and looking at the film, it's different guys, right? The first possession, I think if we just go through the plays, Garoppolo does a really good job of throwing the ball out of the back of the end zone, which surprised the heck out of me because we never see him do that, right? How nice would it have been if he had done that against the Titans last year, So that's the first one. Then you get what should have been a touchdown from Deebo, and then the third one, and they just to get no push. Then the second time they're in the red zone, I don't remember that one quite as well. I think that was the one where, they get stuffed. It's third, and that's the one where he screws up on the RPO. That's what happens there, right? They run the ball on first down. They'd run the ball 2 times. They'd run that zone read right up the gut 2 times in a row, got down to the 8 or 7. They try to run it again. Jake Brendel gets beat and Elijah Mitchell gets dropped for no gain. And then they run that little RPO thing. Garoppolo screws up and throws it to the flat to Elijah Mitchell instead of giving it to Deebo. If he hands that off to Deebo, it's Samuel against the safety 1-on-1 for a touchdown. I'll take Deebo on that every day. And then the third one is the drop by Brandon Ayuk. And that's tough, right? Brandon Ayuk's been your best receiver all year. He's been your most consistent guy. And he struggled in this game. He had the fumble early on, and then he has the drop. And then you get to the last one. And he had said that, if the game situation dictated for him not to throw it, but it would have been a good spot to throw it in. The third down, you have a couple of things happen. You have Michael McGlinchey get beat off the snap, and you have Elijah Mitchell slip. And so you don't get it, you kick a field goal instead. I don't know. I look at it, and the 49ers offense is I think they're moving the ball up and down the field. If they can just stop shooting themselves in the foot the way that they do on a regular basis, this team could be unstoppable.
Yeah, I agree. The other thing, too, that I noticed is there was a pass play. I don't remember the drive. I've been on this whole Trent Williams mission the last couple of days, but there was a pass play inside the 10 that was interesting to me, and I didn't understand it because it was a 2-person route. That's it. They had Deebo on the deep over. It's the one that he threw out of the back of the end zone. That's the play. He had Deebo on the deep over, and I forget who else he had kind of leaking out towards the right or whatever. But to have only 2 people on a route inside the 10 when things are already condensed and you have a bunch of players back there, that one to me was like, okay, I'm not putting this all on just one person, right? You just pointed out a bunch of different things that it could be, and little things that are causing an issue on one play, and maybe the next it's something different. But that one in particular, I definitely put on Shanahan because I don't think that's a good play call inside the 10. That's me personally.
Yeah, that one looked like they were trying to show heavy run because they had both. The receiver you're talking about is Brandon Ayuk. He's the one that's going out into the flat on the right side. He's just running a little quick out. And they have both. They're trying to make it look like they're running power to the right side because they have Kittle coming across, and he's supposed to be like the kick out guy with 44 going up inside of him. I think when you watch that play on the All-22, what kind of stands out to me is that both 44 and 25 end up in the same spot. And I think that the design play is one of those guys supposed to get through the line of scrimmage and then be an underneath guy right there. But I'd have to go back. I think I'd like to go back and see the touchdown that they threw for the first touchdown against the Vikings in that playoff game and see if that's similar. Because it seems to me, just at the top of my head, it feels like it's a very similar play. Because where that play gets blown up, I get it's only a 2-man route. So it's either the flat or the Deebo, you throw it out the back of the end zone. The safety does a good job of not biting on the run, allowing those front 7 to make the play, and that's what shuts it down. So I think the expectation on that was that safety was going to vacate the area and Samuel was going to be wide open.
Yeah, definitely. He did have plenty of time to sit back there and survey. Unfortunately, there was just nobody open and he had to throw it away. Threw it straight to Jerry Rice. That's a good decision also. Shay comes in. He says, tipping this tip that here's a tip for you to keep my all-pro left tackle's name out of your mouth. This is my guy, Shay. What's up, man? How you doing? There was a comment, and I wish I could find it. I'll have to bring it. Oh, here it is, right here. Moonman says, Jack and Jessie, tag team back at it again. Man, Jimmy Ward in the slot has not been a great experience. Can't do that to him. We need Womack there. What are your thoughts on this?
I think the 49ers their belief is that Jimmy Ward is better than Samuel Womack, and so they're putting what they feel is their best 11 out there. I've been going back and forth on this because I said during the game, get him out of there because he's just not. He doesn't cover well in man coverage. He's not good against inside wide receivers inside. He does good against running backs and tight ends. He's going to struggle against those receivers. But as the defensive pass rush picked up in that game, the 49ers secondary played better, and Jimmy Ward played better as well. I think the Jimmy Ward is in the right spot for the 49ers, and that I feel like they have the 2 best safeties. The guys that have given him the most are the guys that are starting, and that's why you have Gibson and Hufanga. Right now, they got 5 interceptions out of their safeties. The last time they've been even close to that number was 2014. So you're getting a lot of plays out of those guys, and that's why Jimmy Ward's not back there. Jimmy Ward's a very good safety, don't get me wrong, does a really good job of keeping everything in front of him, but he's not a playmaker, and they're getting a lot of plays out of their secondary right now. Yeah,
and shout out to Hufanga again. I mean, this guy can't get enough praise right now, but he has 4 interceptions himself, and that is the same as Tart's career. So he's a playmaker. It's absolutely incredible what he's been able to do back there. I wouldn't have an issue if they decided to start Jimmy Ward back at safety and pull Gibson out, but I understand not doing that. I don't like Ward playing nickel, though. That's just me personally, because I'm sure he's great in run fits, but this is a guy who they put at corner early on in his career, and he struggled then. And he was very open and honest about that. Like, hey, people thought I wasn't a good player because I was playing out of position. I'm not a corner. I'm a safety. And here they are putting him back at corner, which is interesting because normally when you get older, it's not like you get quicker. It's not like you're getting faster. In fact, when corners get older, the corners that have long careers often convert to safety. It's not the other way around. It's not like you get older as a safety and then they convert you to corner. That's a little backwards to me. So I personally don't like Jimmy Ward there. I wouldn't have a problem with him starting over Gibson, but I also wouldn't have a problem with him coming off the bench. I would like to see either Womack or Lenore in that position because I think that it's a more natural fit for either one of them. That's just me personally.
Yeah, I think where it gets hard for the 49ers is that if you slide Lenore in there, then who do you put at the outside corner? Because that's where Verrett, I think, was supposed to help them out, right? So with Verrett, they don't have anybody out there, and because the next guy up would be Ambry Thomas, and we've seen Ambry Thomas. He's played a little bit against the Rams when they did this, where they got frustrated, I think, a little bit with Ward, and they pulled him out, and they slid Lenore inside and they put Thomas in, and he gave up a couple of completions and stuff. So I think right now that's their best guys. If they're going to do anything, you would take Jimmy Ward off the field and insert Sam Womack at slot. That's really I would not put him back there and replace Gibson and Hufanga. I just wouldn't. They're playing too good.
Shay said, what's Jack's skincare routine? He looks flawless.
It's yeah. I make sure that I get taken care of weekly.
Yeah, there you go. That's perfect.
See,
I like it.
the light's perfect. It gets rid of all my wrinkles, makes me look 10 years younger.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, the webcam does that too. Webcams are helpful. If you have actual cameras, you'd see how old we really look. Probably isn't very pretty, but these webcams, they don't have the best detail on them, so it makes us look good.
Uh-huh.
Let's talk about Lance comeback. And this is something that I posted last week. This was the first time that Twitter got mad at me. But this is something that I posted last week, the possibility of Trey Lance coming back. And the original timeline that was given was a little all over the place. There were doctors that came out and said, hey, this is a 10. One doctor said 10 to 12 weeks. One said 10 to 14 week injury. Shanahan obviously at the very beginning shut it down and said, hey, he's done for the season, which I can understand. I understand that from two reasons. One, very early on in the process, he may think that he is done for the season. Two, even if he isn't quite sure, he doesn't want the questions when you inevitably see Trey Lance out of a walking boot like you do right now. He doesn't want to deal with those things. And so he wants, and this is good coaching, by the way, if this is what he's thinking at the time. In my opinion, it's good coaching to not put Lance in a situation where he has to answer those questions. You start to see he's around the team now. He's out of his boot. He's looking good for being 9 weeks out at this point. So it's starting to look like he is going to fit that timeline. Now, the other thing is this. I think there was a thought process because Shanahan said that his season was done, that he's on season-ending IR, and that is not the case. There is no season-ending IR. That ended in 2012. There is just IR, and you can only bring 8 players back. So I say all of this to simply say Trey Lance technically could come back. If approved by the medical staff, it is a possibility. I will say, don't write it out of your mind because this is a bone injury. This is not a torn ACL or anything like that. Once a bone is healed, you are, and if you're cleared, you're good. Doctors in those instances will actually push you really, really hard and force you outside of your comfort zone and have you get over some of your mental anxieties over a bone break. Ligaments are much different. So I don't think it is out of the realm of possibility that Trey Lance is brought back. Now, I don't want to see him brought back and thrown immediately into the starting lineup. That's not what I'm saying. But this is a kid that is the future of the team. If he is able to be medically cleared, I say bring him back. Let him be the backup quarterback. Let him run scout team. Let him get as many physical and mental reps as he can. And then if, God forbid, something happened to Jimmy, at least they aren't going to Purdy and they can go to Lance. But only if Trey Lance is medically cleared. That's my stance on it. Jack, what is your thoughts on this situation?
My thought on it is, given the things that have happened to the 49ers in terms of injuries this year, I don't want to see Trey Lance on the field because he's the guy in the future. He's 2023 and beyond. So for me, my question is, do we really want to see Trey Lance back on the field in Santa Clara? That's this year. That's my thing. Do we want to? And I said rush him back when I put that on Twitter, but I don't mean rush him back. I didn't mean it like in terms of rush him back, like you put him out there before he's 100%. I'm just mean get him back to get him out there this year. That's what I meant by that. So I think some people misunderstood and I didn't try to clarify it for anybody else. Let them get angry with me too. But I don't disagree with you in that, I see your point on it. And right now, I don't know if the Friars would have another position anyway. And I got your direction from it. I didn't respond right away because I was reading everything you were putting out. And, so I didn't, that's why I didn't jump on you and said he's not going to come out. And, I'm not expecting, I'm just saying in general, I don't know if I want to see him on the practice field with the 49ers until March. Just because I want him to be fully healthy because he's supposed to be the guy. And just get him healthy, let him recuperate. I don't think that he'd be able to play in a game this year regardless. So I get giving him some reps, but right now my biggest thing is I would hate to see him come back, be cleared, have him come back and not be able to play in 2023 because of an injury.
Yeah, absolutely. And I agree with that. If there is any hesitation from the medical staff or the coaching staff, it's not worth it.
Yeah.
It's just simply not worth it. However, if he's medically cleared, he's able to pass all the tests, he's able to jog, he's able to run, he's able to cut, he's able to show that he's actually healthy. I have no issue. And in fact, I would encourage that they do bring him back to get those reps. Again, I want to be very clear. I'm not saying Trey Lance should start. That is not at all what I'm saying. I'm just saying if he can get those reps, I am all for him doing that, as long as he can do it safely and be completely cleared with no worries medically.
Yeah, I know. And your point, I think anybody that's watching this, they should get that by now. She said it a couple of times, and I get it, and I'm with you. If he's 100% and he's medically cleared and all that kind of stuff, I totally see where you're coming from. My whole thing is just 49ers don't have a good track record of keeping guys healthy, and I would like to see them give this guy as much time as possible to work away from the facility before he comes back in Santa Clara.
Yeah, and that's totally fair.
Mm-hmm.
Hold on. Let me catch up on these darn comments and make sure we're not missing anything. Here's Flav. He says, I was thinking that the Niners might trade Deebo after this year with McCaffrey. If he's devalued and basically just a wide receiver now, would he want out? Thoughts? I don't know if he would want out. Here's the thing. The trade request thing was very real. There shouldn't be a debate about that anymore. But that to me was also more about money. And it was like, hey, if you're not going to pay me what I'm worth, I'm willing to leave and get paid somewhere else and get this money that I deserve. As far as him wanting out now, I don't know if that would be the case. I can see a scenario where maybe they would entertain it because McCaffrey is here. But I think that time wouldn't come this offseason. I would think that would come in a season or two when Ayuk is up for contract. Because Ayuk's the younger player. Ayuk fits kind of more, I think, what Trey Lance likes to do. Throwing outside the numbers, throwing deep downfield. Ayuk is a route technician, and Deebo Samuel is great, and he can get open deep. I'm not trying to limit him and say that he can't do certain things, but he's not as crisp of a route runner as Ayuk. I think anybody watching the game would tell you that. And I could see a scenario eventually where they choose Ayuk over Deebo, but I think that's probably a couple years away, in my opinion. What do you think, Jack?
Yeah, I think you're right. I think his contract doesn't really ramp up for a couple years. I think he's still lower next year. Mm-hmm. I could see that be a situation where by the time they need to make a decision to get where the money starts to become high for Brandon Ayuk, then that's when they can move off of Deebo Samuel. It was a 3-year extension, so they've got him for 3 years after this. Well, I'm pretty sure Brandon Ayuk's number in terms of his cap hit isn't going to be very high because they got the 5th-year option they can choose and all those kinds of. They can make things work with him and keep both those guys around for a couple more years. So I think you got probably another year, maybe 2 with Deebo Samuel before they move on.
Absolutely. And I want to bring up this comment from early in the show because we're about to get to the Trent Williams thing. He says he loves how David Lombardi addressed the Trent Williams tipping thing, basically saying that it didn't matter. Now, before I address the comment, I'll let you. We haven't talked about this at all, Jack. So I'm just curious to know what your thoughts overall are on the Trent Williams tipping situation, and then I'll take it from there.
Yeah, I first off, I want to start by saying that was good work by you to find it, and you put a lot of work into it. So kudos to you for the work of doing that, putting that out there, taking the risk because you know what you're going to get on the back end of it. That was good. I'm having a hard time seeing if it's really causing the 49ers issues. Because I don't think this is the first time Trent Williams has done this. I would say he was probably doing it last year as well when the 49ers were scoring more points and, had a strong second half run. I don't think they really played a whole lot better without him. If we look at the games that he's missed and those kind of things. So, 2020 was just a bad team. Last year they made the playoffs with him. This year I think they're going to make the playoffs with him again. And I just think there's so much that goes into playing that position. I get what you're saying. And it definitely would be a disadvantage if you know that there's a run versus a pass. But at the same time, the way that the 49ers do some of their stuff, I think they probably understand and they kind of accept that, and they understand, I don't know. I've seen people talk about everybody else. I don't, whatever. But just in terms of the Trent Williams thing, I don't think it's causing issues for the 49ers.
Yeah, and I by the way, I think that's a fair stance to take. The issue that I took early on is that I was having to prove that it is actually a tell. And that, to me, like to what you said in the very beginning, you put a lot of effort into this. It wasn't just that I posted it on Twitter and then made a video about it. I put about 5 hours of film review into figuring out that this was an issue, and it was an isolated issue to Trent Williams when it came to the 49ers. Now, I'm sure that there are tackles across the league that may do something similar. What I can tell you is, in comments that I got a lot of, were every tackle does this. And there is some truth to that. Every tackle does this in the league when it is obvious passing downs. Not every tackle does this when it is, say, 1st and 10. And plenty of time is left on the clock. You have no urgency. Trent Williams does do this in those scenarios. If it is a I'll tell you this. Trent Williams, if you just show me a picture of Trent Williams, you zoom in on him, you don't tell me his opponent, you don't tell me the down and distance, you don't tell me the clock, you give me no information, just zoom in on Trent Williams, I will tell you if it's a run or a pass based off of that solely. Now, does that mean it's an issue? I think that's where the debate comes in. But I want to be clear, there should be no debate on whether he does have a tell or he doesn't have a tell. And I have, there's crazy engagement on this thing. It's up to like 4 million eyes on this thing. I never expected anything like that to happen. But through that, there has been a lot of education on either me educating other people and people educating me. I've had ex-offensive linemen, NFL offensive linemen comment on it. We've had conversations. I had a O-line camp with tons of followers, like 50,000 followers, comment on it. And his comment at first was, not a big deal. All offensive tackles do this. And I responded with multiple screenshots proving otherwise. And he goes, wow, okay, maybe we need to dig into this a little bit further. They're actually going to have a podcast talking about this very thing because he found what I replied with very interesting. As far as what Lombardi said, it sounds like he has a YouTube video. I don't know what the details of that are. Maybe it came across very different. But what he tweeted was very, in my opinion, very disrespectful. He basically said that I was making things up. And I don't know what I'm talking about. And that's where I draw the line. Because like I said, I put in a lot of work to show that it is very obvious he has a tell. McKivitz doesn't do it. McGlinchey doesn't do it. It's not a 49er thing. The Falcons don't do it. And there's 3 other teams that I watched brief things of that they didn't do it either. Trent Williams clearly has a tell. Now, does it impact things? I don't know. I don't think we would ever technically truly know. The 49ers do have a lot of offensive issues. I will be clear about that. They have so many offensive issues that this is probably pretty low on the list. But what I will say is, if you have a defender, an opposing defender, come out in week 1 and tell you that this is happening, they're picking up on it too. And at what point does it start to be an issue? I don't know. I don't know the answer to that. But to me, it's not nothing. There's something to it. It's an obvious tell. And we'll see if it ever becomes an issue. And let me clear this up too. It's not going to impact Trent Williams. Trent Williams is the best left tackle of this generation. He is one of the best left tackles of all time. He could look at his opponent straight across and say, hey, we're going to run this play, and they wouldn't be able to get around him because he's that damn good. It's like Kobe Bryant in the post or Michael Jordan in the post. You know a turnaround fadeaway is coming, but what are you going to do about it? Where I think that it could be an issue is if the defense is communicating. I think it puts stress on the players around him because now the players that are lined up in front of them know what's coming, and they are not Trent Williams. That's where I'm saying the issue lies. It doesn't lie in Trent Williams. Trent Williams is a 9-time Pro Bowler. He's a Hall of Famer. He is a very, very good player. It's not him that I'm worried about. It's the players next to him that I'm worried about. And that's where I'm coming from on the whole situation.
No, and you're cool. And real quick, I want to address this too, because I hadn't seen his comments until we got on this live stream and somebody brought him up. I'm just going to read him real quick, and I'm going to give you my response to it. I'm going to break it up into a couple pieces. He says, I actually had a conversation with Trent Williams regarding some of these stance concerns that people have been making up online a few weeks ago. Okay, I just got to stop right there. Hey, David, if he's making it up, why the hell did you ask the question? If this isn't, if there's no concern, why did you feel the need to go ask Trent Williams about it? Because if there's nothing to talk about, if it's not a concern, or if it's being made up, why would you go ask the question? It's a bunch of bullshit. You don't have to necessarily be the smartest guy in the room all the time. Sometimes other people find things out. And just because Jessie doesn't cover the team like you do, doesn't mean that he's not smart and didn't figure something out. Now, I can disagree with Jessie or say that I don't know if it's making a big deal about it, like it's a issue, because again, like I said, I'd have to go back and look at some of the other games that he's played in and different. I'd have to do a lot of film work to tell you if I think it's an issue, because my first response is that I don't think it is. And I don't think it is because there's a lot of things that the 49ers can do around it. So I just don't think it's a big deal. You know what I'm saying? But I get where you're coming from, because as a coach or as a player, if you can see what somebody is doing, it gives you a benefit, right? If you know that it's going to be run, it should help you with your get off. If you know it's going to be a pass, it should help you a little bit with your get off. You know what I'm saying? Now, that doesn't mean that the defender knows what the play is going to be, because there's lots of different plays in the playbook, but it could help them out. I don't think it's a big deal in terms of overall effect on the 49ers offense. But like I said, I told you before we started the show, I give you major kudos for finding it and for taking, it takes guts to put there, because people aren't going to like it. And if you believe in it, put it out there, and I applaud you for it.
Yeah, and I appreciate that. Like I said, I don't want this to come across like I'm smarter than everybody else. You don't know what you're talking about. I want to be clear. There's two different arguments here. There is it a tell, and is it an issue? Is it a tell? Unequivocally, 1,000%, it is. There is no debate about that. That portion should not be debated. Is it an issue? I don't know. I personally think that it is, but I'm not going to tell somebody they're wrong if they don't think that it is. And so that's where I think the debate is fair and healthy, and we can have those conversations. I personally didn't like the disrespect. So that's where I'm coming from. That's that. If you haven't seen the video, I really do encourage you to watch it, because I do break down, hey, this is what it looked like when McKivitz was playing. This is what it looks like when Trent Williams is playing. And I promise you this, one thing it will do, regardless of where you stand on this situation, I will guarantee there are a lot of people that come Monday are paying a lot of attention to Trent Williams and trying to figure out if they know what play is coming based off of his stance. At the very least, everybody will have fun with that. So enjoy that, have fun with it. And, it just kind of is what it is. Now,
I like it. Hey, no, man, I'm in your, I wish nobody had even brought that up, because that really fires me up, because I just don't, I from a content creator standpoint, there are times of myself where I don't say things because I don't agree with somebody or whatever, because of something that they're saying. And sometimes it's because it's sour grapes, because they found it first. And so I know how that can come across. But, and that's that it's not, man, if you took the time to go talk to the guy, how can you sit up? And that's just a bunch of baloney. Let's go ahead and let's move on.
All right. This is early, and it may seem too early to talk about the playoffs, but I don't think that it is, because it's starting to shape up like we know where the 49ers are going to be. They're either going to be the 3 seed or the 7 seed. Those are the most likely outcomes. Right now, the Eagles they have one loss. They finally lost last night to the Commanders. So good for the Commanders on getting that win. Division games are always tough. It's nice to see that the Eagles can be beat. So good on you, Commanders, for doing that. So the Eagles are going to finish with a top 2 seed with only one loss, unless they just go into a tailspin here, which highly unlikely. The Vikings are in a very similar situation. They are in a spot where they're going to have to lose. The Eagles are going to have to lose probably 4 games down the stretch, which is unlikely. And the Vikings are going to have to lose 3 games down the stretch themselves. Excuse me, 4 games down the stretch themselves, which is highly unlikely. And the 49ers would have to be almost perfect to even get into one of those top 2 seeds. So, in my opinion, I think the 3 seed is probably the ceiling for this team. The question is this, because the 49ers, actually I have a couple things. The 49ers, if they win Sunday, believe it or not, because I think Seattle's on a bye, if they win Sunday, they're first place in the NFC West. So do you think that the 49ers finish the season as the top team in the NFC West, Jack?
Yes. I think the 49ers are the best team in the NFC West. I think they're going to win the NFC West. And I agree with you too. I think 3 is as high as it's going to go unless the wheels just completely fall off on one of those top 2 teams. Because I don't think they'll have the tiebreakers over them. I'd have to look back and see how it all shakes out. So I think 3 is probably the best scenario for the 49ers. And yeah, I think told you this a while back. I said this a few different times. I think it all comes down to what happens on December 15th up in Seattle. 49ers win that game. They're gonna pretty much at that point, I think, solidify their spot as the NFC West champions. I know there's still a few games left, but that's going to be the big one.
Yeah, and I agree with you. I do think they're going to win the West as well. So we basically can almost pencil it, assuming that is the case, we can basically pencil the 49ers into that 3 seed if they win that division. So being the 3 seed, here's the outlook of what they're going to be facing. Round 1 would be either Dallas or the Giants. I feel much better about facing the Giants, by the way, but I think the 49ers can beat Dallas. That game would be a home game. Let's say worst case scenario. Let's go worst case scenario. They play Dallas at home week 1 of the playoffs. Week 2, if everything goes as chalk, they're going to travel and they're going to play Minnesota. And if they win that game and everything goes to chalk, they would then travel again and go to Philadelphia. So knowing that route, worst case scenario, Dallas, Minnesota, Dallas at home, Minnesota on the road, Philly on the road. How confident are you that the 49ers can make it through that gauntlet and get to a Super Bowl?
I wouldn't like to see them go to Philadelphia. I think I look at the NFC and it's 49ers and Eagles. Those are the top 2 teams. That's the NFC championship game to me, most likely. And that's going to be a really tough one against Philadelphia. Philadelphia just has such a good defense for the most part. And that running game, that quarterback with Jalen Hurts, 49ers defense, that scares me. They were close to beating them last year, and Hurts wasn't playing as good as he is right now. And that defense is really good. And playing in the cold in Philly, I hope somebody knocks them off before the 49ers get there.
Yeah, absolutely. Let me get to some of these super chats real quick. I agree, by the way. I don't want to go to Philly. I understand they lost, and people are kind of yucking it up like, oh, I knew this team was overrated. I don't look at Philly like that at all, personally, because to me, first of all, it's a division game. We saw the 49ers last year who were this far away from going to a Super Bowl and probably winning a Super Bowl, and they lost to an Arizona Cardinals team that was so depleted. Division games are always one of those things that you just can't predict. Buffalo losing to the Jets, nobody saw that coming. It's just the way that this game is played. The Colts last year going to Jacksonville in week 18, everybody thought it was a lock. They make the playoffs, they lose to Jacksonville. You just can't predict any of those divisional games. So I agree. I don't want to go to Philly. Dallas personally doesn't scare me. Minnesota, I think they match up very well with. It's Philly. That's the team in the NFC that I don't want to see, and especially because right now I believe that Davis is still out, their rookie defensive tackle that plays next to Fletcher Cox. He's a big boy, and once he's back in, it's much harder to run on that team, and that's where the 49ers want to make things happen. They want to make things shake through the running game, and if they are unable to do that because Philly is stout up the middle, then it could get very interesting. And being on the road, you don't like that either. So we'll see. We'll see what plays out. But I wanted to put it, and we wanted to put it on the minds of 49er fans that is the likely path that we're going to see in the playoffs. So start to think about it, start to get ready, start to kind of scout the opponents. and figure out what these matchups might look like.
Yeah, I think it's going to be.
Back. Yeah, go ahead.
No, I think he's right. I think Shay's got the best here because I think the answer to that is it just depends on how much it's well. No, I think it depends on how much wood Mike McGlinchey can carry.
It's a good. That's outside the box thinker right there. This is why we do this show, Jack. Shay, dude, thank you. This right here might be the peak of the Hammer and Nail show when you're paying to say how much wood could a woodchuck chuck if a woodchuck could chuck wood. That's impressive. Raphael 562. I don't even know what channel you're watching on because I know that you watch both Last Second Sports and the Jack Hammer channel. But either way, we appreciate you. It says if your QB1 is ready to go, he starts, right? I don't think so. I don't. We had the talk earlier, but this is a pretty straightforward question. I personally think the answer is no. But Jack, what are your thoughts?
What are you talking about? Your QB1 starting already? No, I'm kidding. No, I just had to get the people all mad in the comments section. I mean, okay, I get it. I just if it wasn't Trey Lance, like if you're talking about if Trey Lance was if it was reversed and Trey Lance had the experience of Jimmy Garoppolo, for example, then I would agree with it. But in this case, because of the lack of experience, I don't think you go that direction. And again, I can understand the argument of people wanting to bring him back and all those kind of things. We'll see if the 49ers have a spot to do that, with their IR. I just, again, for me, so that everybody's really clear, because I've seen that question and I saw a couple of other questions asking, why, again, my whole thing with it is look at the 49ers injury situation. Look at these guys that are getting coming off of days off. And do you really want to put Trey Lance out there? And I get, okay, maybe it's a little bit of a week, whatever, but I'd rather have him ready to go for sure March right away when we get to get to OTAs than have him come back and something happen during practice right now. And then you don't see him until August because of some goofy injury that happens. You know what I'm saying? That's the only thing that I'm saying, because I just don't want him to get injured. And I think that I just don't have a lot of faith in this 49ers training staff. I think that's really where it lies. Absolutely.
And by the way, great name. When I said your name in my head, I said it in Joe Montana's cadence. That's a great name right there. Black 59 Razor. Yep. Jesse, you are a lot more interesting when you're not ripping Jimmy. Keep up the good work. Well, I appreciate that. One thing that I will always promise you, and you can like it, you can hate it, you're always going to get my honest opinion in the moment. It's going to be very real, and sometimes it might feel over the top, but you have to remember that I'm a fan just like you. And when that game's on Sunday, I'm freaking out and having fun and going through the emotional roller coaster that fans do, just like you. So when I get on here, a lot of the things that I'm talking about, I'm going to come from a spot of education because that's what I owe to you. But I'm also going to frankly come from a spot of emotion because I am a fan just like everybody else. So I appreciate the comment from you. And Jamal says, if OBJ is healthy and back to what we saw from him last year and he signs with Dallas, then Dallas is an interesting, dare I say, tough matchup. That is a great comment, and I don't disagree. I don't want to say that Dallas, like they're nothing. Their defense is really good, but one thing we do know is that team and this team are very similar to what they were last year. Certainly there are differences, but the main guys are still back. We know that the 49ers can impose their will on Dallas. Can Dallas impose their will on San Francisco? I'm not saying they can't, but we haven't seen it happen, so I wouldn't bet on it. What do you think, Jack?
I don't like Odell Beckham going against the 49ers. We saw it last year in the playoffs. I would hope that doesn't occur.
Yeah, yeah, we definitely did. After Ambry Thomas made the game-winning interception in Week 18, covering Odell, he definitely had an axe to grind for sure. Flav says, I thought Jesse's film breakdown on Trent was awesome, and in general, love his research analysis facts, minus maybe Trey versus Jimmy. Lombardi just mad that he didn't have the time to do the PowerPoint on it for her. That's an elite comment. Flav, I appreciate it, man. I appreciate it. I think this is as great of a time as any to wrap things up. Jack, thank you so much for joining me again on Hammer and Nails. It's fun doing it on both channels. Make sure you subscribe to Jack's channel, Jack Hammer. Very simple. You'll see him right there. Also, you want to plug the Santa Rosa Press Democrat stuff?
Yeah, get over there. Inside the 49ers.pressdemocrat.com. That's the paper over there. Give me about another 20 minutes and there'll be a new article up for today. Just got to finish that up. I ran out of time so I could do the film review online. So check it out. It'll be up in about by 7 o'clock. It'll be there. So check it out.
Perfect. And I will be back tomorrow with Grant doing 49ers After Dark. And then the day after that, I will be live right back here doing Behind Enemy Lines with an Arizona Cardinals content creator. Until then, peace.
Take care, everybody.